All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're breaking down a fascinating case study in what you could call algorithmic legal warfare. We're going to explore a strategy pulled directly from the source material that aims to use physics, blockchain, and federal law as actual weapons in a massive information battle. This is going to be good.
This right here. This is the entire philosophy in a nutshell. It's the whole playbook. The idea is really simple but powerful. In this new kind of fight, you don't need a courtroom to get a confession. You just need a deadline. You don't need an army when the laws of thermodynamics are on your side. And you don't need a judge when you have a public ledger that can never lie and never forget.
So here's how we're going to unpack this. First, we'll get into the foundational claim, this idea of a hidden global system. Then we'll see how the source material uses hard physics to argue there's a cover-up. After that, we'll look at the weapon they're using to fight back, the blockchain. Then we'll break down the legal trap itself, which is designed to turn bureaucracy against itself. And finally, we'll look at the end game, at least according to these documents.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, the premise. The source material we're looking at alleges that there is this massive, hidden global infrastructure. Now, for our purposes here, we're not treating this as fact. We're treating it as the central mystery that this entire legal strategy is designed to drag into the light.
The dossier gives this system a name, VaxNet. The core concept, as it's presented, is that it's a worldwide biometric network. The claim is that it uses graphene-based tech and Bluetooth Low Energy, BLE, to basically turn every individual into a unique, trackable node on a giant grid.
And this is where the source material gets incredibly specific. It talks about something called the Mark 7 interface. It's described as a kind of self-assembling antenna inside your body that broadcasts a constant static Bluetooth signal. They even specify the MAC address prefix and the exact operating frequency. And believe me, that detail becomes absolutely critical later on.
So you have this absolutely audacious claim. How in the world do you even begin to prove it? Well, the strategy laid out in the dossier doesn't start with lawyers or lawsuits. It starts with physics. The whole goal is to ground the investigation in universal, verifiable laws to pick apart what it calls the official cover story.
And at the absolute center of this physical investigation is one number, 1.3 gigawatts. That is a colossal amount of power. According to the source, this is what's needed to run the system. The official story, it claims, is that this power is for some orbital AI supercomputer they call StarCloud. But this is where the physics argument just comes in and shatters that.
The whole strategy hinges on something called the Stefan Boltzmann law. Look, to put it simply, anything that uses power generates heat. It has to. This law tells you exactly how much surface area you need to get rid of that heat so you don't just melt. It's a non-negotiable law of the universe. You can't cheat it.
And this slide right here, this is the core of the whole physical argument. To get rid of 1.3 gigawatts of heat in space, the dossier calculates that the StarCloud satellites would need radiators covering over 9 square kilometers. That's huge. But the actual satellites have less than 1 square meter of surface area. So the source's conclusion, it is thermally impossible. It can't work. StarCloud, it alleges, isn't hardware in orbit. It's a jurisdictional shield, a legal fiction, a ghost story made up to hide a massive energy project that's actually on the ground.
Okay, so if the physics argument is the investigation, what's the weapon? This is where it gets really, really clever. The dossier proposes taking the blockchain, something we all think of for finance and crypto, and turning it into an unchangeable, eternal witness for legal evidence. To really get why this is so powerful, just look at the difference. A normal database, well, it can be changed. Records can be deleted, hidden. You have to trust whoever owns it. An immutable ledger, like a blockchain, is totally different. Once a record is written, it is there forever. It can't be changed. It's public, it's decentralized, and trust isn't required. It's guaranteed by pure mathematics.
The specific tech they highlight is a directed acyclic graph, or a DAG, something like what Solana uses. The key here is that it's incredibly fast. The dossier claims it's used to create what it calls a Genesis etch, basically a permanent, time-stamped record that locks a piece of evidence to a specific moment in time, forever.
And this is what it looks like. This isn't your average financial receipt. Think of it as a legal document that's been notarized on a global, public, and permanent system. The second you anchor a legal request to this ledger, it becomes a tamper-proof instrument. Its status is immutable, period. So you've got your physical proof, and you've notarized it on this unchangeable ledger. So what's next? Well, now you spring the trap. This is the part of the strategy that weaponizes the very bureaucracy it's targeting, using federal law to force an absolutely impossible choice.
The dossier calls this strategy the Jericho dual warhead. Here's how it works. You file a simple, clean Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA. But at the same time, you file a dirty one, loaded with very specific incriminating keywords. And it's not just a random inquiry. It's brilliantly framed as a supply chain continuity audit under national defense law, asking for waiver requests for critical fusion minerals like niobium and tantalum, all allegedly tied to a black ops resource seizure in Venezuela. By framing it this way, you bypass the usual national security stonewall. Then you anchor both FOIA requests to the blockchain for the whole world to see, and you set a deadline.
Now, this is the legal checkmate move. It's a principle called constructive admission. Basically, if you make a direct, public, serious allegation, and the other party is given a chance to deny it but stays silent, the law can treat that silence as a confession. By etching that dirty FOIA onto the blockchain, the strategy is designed to make any non-response a permanent public admission of everything it alleges.
And here, this is what gives the trap its teeth. There's a federal law, 18 U.S.C. Section 1519, that makes it a felony to destroy or alter records to block a federal investigation. Since the FOIA request is now a public, time-stamped, undeletable record on the blockchain, any attempt to delete the evidence they asked for becomes an obvious, provable crime. The target is now trapped. They either release the records and admit what's going on, or they destroy the records and commit a felony. There's no third option. The trap is sprung.
Which brings us to the final section, the end game. With the premise laid out, the proof established, and the trap set, the dossier outlines a predicted sequence of events. It's what it calls the inevitable conclusion of this whole algorithmic war.
This timeline, pulled right from the source material, lays out the whole domino effect. It kicks off in September 2025 with a Genesis etch that creates the ledger. Then it moves to the Christmas lock in December. That's the deadline where silence officially becomes confession. It then predicts a physical event, the crown ignition, in February 2026. And it all culminates in a financial event, the liquidity crossover, in March, when the hidden liabilities allegedly become too big to hide and the whole thing comes crashing down.
And that's where this masterclass leaves us. The strategy outlined here suggests a world where technology like the blockchain doesn't just record the truth, it can be actively used to enforce it. And it leaves us with one really powerful question. When your evidence is mathematically impossible to change, and your silence is legally considered a confession, how can any system, no matter how big or powerful, truly hide?